everyone. It's lovely to see a nice big crowd today. I'd like to introduce Mr. Gerry Shikatani. He has a very passionate interest in the diverse elements of human endeavor. His work in language, prose, text, sound performance, experimental film, and above all, poetry, brought him national and international acclaim. He has published several collections of poetry, including his opus, Aqueduct, Poems and Texts from Europe, which you can see here today. His current work, Niwa, which is set in the gardens of Japan, is the second part of his 2-volume garden poems, Motor, Rake, Glove, Broom, Basin, Sansu, begun in 1996. Volume 1, first book, 3 Gardens of Andalusia, appeared in 2003. Also, we have a copy. In a world that is so consumed with business and fast-paced living, his poetry helps readers to take a moment to appreciate life and slow down. His garden poems are so evocative that the gardens come to life in the mind of the reader. They enable the reader to experience the pure pleasure, beauty, and serenity that nature brings. The noble spirit of Japanese culture rings true in his words. Mr. Shikatani has recently returned from a trip to Japan, where he was publicizing his recently translated works, Lake and Other Stories. Mr. Shikatani has also been a culinary critic for over 30 years, and he has published A Passion for Food, which is a collection of conversations with Canadian chefs. Some of you might be interested in hearing about that. He's an expert on Spanish cuisine and culture, and he was actually recognized by King Charles I of Spain for his achievements. Closer to home, he has also served as writer-in-residence at UWO from 2005 to 6. And he was born in Toronto. He has lived in Montreal and Paris, and now he resides in Peterborough. Please welcome Mr. Shikatani.
This will be a little bit of a trip, kind of a drive-through with the Renault Donuts, but occasional stops to places like France, Spain, Japan, and in Ontario. Aqueduct was published as a collection of 3 books in one, poems and texts set in Europe, written in from 1979 to 1987. So this will be actually clearly few short little stops along the way, just to give you a taste of the flavors of Europe, starting in Italy. Brioche taken with icy granita in morning, that shock, chill in the morning stomach. The littered, welcoming beach at Naxos. All these we tell to family, friends on return, desperate for vocabularies of taste and sight, and only half understood a postcard's off-tone. But for us to hint to selves or nod with phrase, a setting and image, fishermen in Sicily. Together there is this sea. We float on a net lyric, sentimental with the capture of fine dusk light. Our lives in hinged passage, both of us ring in that incendiary heat of recall. To sharply define the words by their drop placement in stream, aqua deflection, inflection, and by whose land irrigated and like as well those who come mute to drink on sun-cracked streets. Words now cherished, placed wet into a chosen frame, a structure of dry conserves. The line is clear, lips to aqueduct, these photos still wet on pavement, against the fine dust. In 1984 through to 85 was the first year I lived in Paris, based in Paris, and traveled around Europe composing the last of the 3 books in here, book 3. And again, clearly in France, one gets attracted by the kitchen, but also the sensuality and the issues around our life of senses throughout the city. The kitchen, oh, that clapping clatter of metal pots and pans, the kitchen odor soft, celery and carrots softening in butter, veal bones browning, mustard and cream, buckwheat, or perhaps simply a colander of chervil and snipped laurel, the dried lavender and anemone. Open doors swollen with damp, the thinning rain. Objects have their singular mute power and relentless assign strongly take their lute of passion, each turn of the head, watchfulness. Substances and concepts arrive not unengaged, such to forget or regret. Each date, an object infinite, as long as it's felt, an evening, a night bed tumbled together, that ringing of pans. And outside that kitchen, that small little room that I had, into the streets, to the metro, the subway, the bend, that scream which comes, a parenthesis opens, low hum, it closes, from deep within and erases all current news, affairs, ears perked to radio on your table. Maybe you're preparing a dinner. Meteo, the weather report, opens the wet doors, the sea wander smell violet kelp on the beach, or at the fishmonger, a bed for poaching lemon sole. That, for instance, that voice of mumbling, but deep words from the poor drunkard woman, her flaccid fur in the metro, who smelled of off-wine and vomiting. That way. What's the meteo? And, parenthesis opens, can we call it dance? Closes. She rose silent, opens again. Premeditation, a parenthesis closes. To attack, open, choreograph, close. And pull violent this woman, too prim, accompanied by husband, en route, dressed in expensive black fur. Disdain, and then to sit, now pressed next to me. I imagine this smell on my sleeve, a headline flash, the newspapers, Le Monde, Libération, a stain. Open the parenthesis. Ask us, whose side are we on? Close it, preparing dinner. Which side of the sentence do we implant ourselves, with each slice of shallots, with each slice of sep, with the stomach rumblings of hunger, or the pitiless waltz of fear, key of deep music? Le Monde, L'Equipe, for the sports I read, this radio, all current affairs, you see that which music writes in us to make speech clear, decided, lyrical, articulate by gourmet, that low hum. Clearly, probably the most famous, the tourist sites of Paris after the Tour Eiffel, after the Eiffel Tower, is Notre Dame Cathedral. This is entitled She, to begin with conjunction and as sung, and I still wonder about the title and where it comes from. But that is, I think, is often the magic of writing and poetry, is that even those who create it, sometimes those things remain mysterious, which is really the essence of the spirit of writing, of making art. To begin with conjunction, I do not know the speech. I do not know. The blue permitting glass high is cast, light and yet its dark vault, which holds a Newman hesitant movement. Project music born in hands, breath. What next? Look, these hands of mine, holding pen, or shimmer floating midday, sun in river. There could be a bridge come upon, bridge, which crosses that where tempi and tune joins with light, hands unbound yet, that constant gravity. Here, organ pipes reach up the blue depths of intensity, of her rose window and red, yellow, of her rose window and red, yellow. Look, could be beginning, a bridge, the force come upon in hands, a light enhancing gravity. I spent quite a few years traveling to Spain, doing work both in culinary field, researching the cuisine, but also culturally in the gardens of Spain. So en route to there, past the French border into Spain on the northeast coast of the Mediterranean, in the autonomous region of Catalonia, where Barcelona is located. There is a little village, Cadaqués. Cadaqués in the region of Girona. It was also a center for the arts, a center for surrealist art. Salvador and Gala Dali lived and passed away there in Cadaqués. There's one little note, the word pesetas, which was the currency of Spain before the euro. Cadaqués, 2. Take the gust from green mountains, where the curve of the bay road around your waist, a sash to your taste that is hanging in the shop for pesetas, a bell rings once in the sea. Garlic, sardines, blood sausage, and hot grilling pans. Cover the nose and ears, open the mouth. Again, arriving from Figueres by bus, those hairpin turns, ascending then descending over mountain road. In the pocket of it, pitch of tires upon pavement, burning feet that turn into dusk. Take the gusts from green mountains, where the curve of the bay road around your waist, a sash to your taste that is hanging in a shop for pesetas. A bell rings once in the sea. Since that time I came here when I was small with my parents, it was by accident too. I've thought it my favorite place in the world. Her voice, now so distant, drums the present to the ear. And now back from the shore, on a narrow street, Casa Anita, the kitchen's hot smoke blows through plastic ribbon curtains. Garlic, sardines, blood sausage, and hot grilling pans. Cover the nose and ears. Open the mouth. Taste of saliva, only a repression, disguises the bloodied fish or throbbing, butcher-ready pig. And out overseas is that taste for reenactment or repetition. Favorite place be that pork heart, air sanguine of the eve. Take the gusts from green mountains, where the curve of the bay road around your waist, a sash to your taste that is hanging in a shop for pesetas. A bell rings once in the sea. And now, shadowy skiffs float moored beneath the eaves of the stars. Blonde cat seeks the dark stench, scratching for fleas. It swings its collar, its tail, oh. A garlic hangs heavily in the heart. Take the gust from green mountains, where the curve of the bay road around your waist, a sash to your taste that is hanging in a shop for pesetas. A bell rings heavily in the heart. Again, very, very briefly, I have been spending time in Spain and in the gardens of Andalusia. Later on, I'll be talking much more and reading from more recent works written in Japan from the same project. It started in 1991. It's called Mortar, Rake, Glove, Soson, Broom, Basin, Sansui. And the first book out of that, set in southern Spain in Andalusia, the first book, Three Gardens of Andalusia, was written in principally 3 gardens, which are Moorish gardens during the time from 711 to the end of the 15th century, which was under Islamic Moorish rule. But it was an extraordinary culture, and part of the project that I've been doing since 1991 and is still ongoing was to just set my plate itself into places, gardens which are clearly significant in that culture and also in Japan, where the things that were most important were the spiritual and poetry.